Political party Xiluva is today celebrating a year since its formation. The party was formed by Democratic Alliance and Action SA politician Bongani Baloyi last year, former rather, as the May 29 election day edges closer, and the IEC already announced the candidate lists for the much anticipated elections. What are Xiluva's targets? Baloyi joins us for that chat in studio. Bongani, good to have you on the show, and congratulations on 12 months in the business.
Thank you so much. I think that 12 months in the business qualifies me to no longer be referred to as a former so-and-so, purely just as the president of Xiluva.
Okay, well, Mr. President of Xiluva, thanks so much for joining us. So let's talk about the last 12 months. Key milestones, what have you achieved?
Yeah.
Are people in tune with your vision?
Look, absolutely. I think that one of the most difficult things to do in the body politics of South Africa is come with something new. Something that says to African people, let's stop assimilating, let's go back to ourselves. And empowered by an ideology of Ubuntu, which basically means we're speaking to the essence of black people, right? So it's difficult in a monetized system of politics where money runs everything, where if you have an idea about indigenous knowledge and driving that as a center of who you are as a political party, because your agenda does not meet with the agenda of money, you will not be supported. But we have persisted, and that's the biggest takeaway for us, is that we have persisted from being an idea to launching an ideology of Ubuntu in the body politics of the country and shaping a lot of what's happening in the country, more so with other parties pronouncing on the very same idea of tabled on the table, being Ubuntu. So we're quite excited. The milestones that we have met is that first we've been able to register with the IEC as a political party, meet the requirements of the IEC to be on the national ballot and also on the provincial ballot of Gauteng. But most importantly was to persuade and win the hearts and minds of South Africans.
Okay, so let's talk about those South Africans. Just what has the response been like? I mean, you've obviously talked to being able to meet the IEC's requirements, so you are on the ballot. Correct. In Gauteng. Yeah. I imagine that's your focus area for the May 29th elections. You've got the numbers, so obviously there is some response. Yeah.
Look, absolutely. We are on the ballot focusing in the Gauteng province, but equally on the national ballot. So the response on the ground has been quite exciting. People are finding that Xiluva, what it stands for, what it articulates, is a breath of fresh air, because we are speaking to the essence of who we are as African people. And for the first time, we are saying, let's stop assimilating into communism, socialism, Marxism. What happened to our ideologies of our fathers and ideas that represent who we are, where we, as Africans, don't need to assimilate and lose our essence to be part of something that actually isn't working for us. So what we have seen is that 30 years of democracy later, what does it mean for Africans as a people? Where are we in terms of the things that matter to us? What's the state of African households? Stats SA will tell us that households that are, black households, 60% of them are single-parent households. So we've got black, broken families, which translate and manifest in different ways. So when we speak to people, this is what we are finding, that they're actually resonating to the message, but equally yearning for something that's going to respond decisively to the plight of African people.
So let's talk about Ubuntu. Going back to what our forefathers stood for, how does it translate to a message to those voters that will be going to the ballot on May 29th?
Absolutely. When we normally speak about Ubuntu, people will say and stop at the fact that saying, I am because we are, and then leave it there. We've gone beyond that. We've said Ubuntu in the main is three things. It is Umuntu Abantu, which deals with the fact that we as African people do not believe in individualism. Umuntu because of Abantu, which means we're a communitarian society. So to be part of Umuntu, you must be part of Abantu, that contributes positively to the state of your community. The second part is Amasiko, the third part is Isintu. These three things have a custodian. The custodian of these are Makos, our traditional leadership, which have been disempowered over the years. What is the biggest irony is that Amakos were part of formation of the first political party to go and get land and dignity of black people back. And later, when we have a constitution, the powers are removed from Amakosi to be part of a democracy that represents who we are, not England or Rome or any other place. So we firmly believe that when we land this message and say to our people, there's nothing that stands between politics and the people, which was supposed to be Amakos, the buffer that protects the people when all else goes wrong. So when we learned this message, it actually resonates with the people, and many people say to us, but what does it mean for the economics? What are you going to deliver to us in an economics point of view?
And what is your response to that?
Our response is that we are going to launch what we call expanded broad rules-based black economic empowerment. We believe what we have on the table is narrow. It looks at some people. In fact, it has empowered a few names at the expense of many other people. Those who have been empowered have been those who are linked to political principles and not just every normal South Africans who are entrepreneurs, who have worked in those environments and delivered, right? And look at how government as an institution has been used to transform through its procurement, and whether has it done a good job or not. Look at fronting. Many years later into democracy, fronting is still at the heart of it, and people are manipulating laws and legislation that are meant to transform black people.
So how will the new broad-based economic empowerment...
Expanded broad-based.
Expanded.
Correct. So we are going to be quite more thorough and ruthless about how we use our procurement to assist black people. It won't just be something for a year. We're actually going to give, between the spending of 0 and 10 and 100 million rands, 100 million, we are going to dedicate that towards African people in the main, and giving longer contracts to be able for them to stand on their 2 feet, learn the skill, get equally the infrastructure to be able to compete with the market as well. So we're going to be quite thorough about that, equally providing the banking infrastructure for them to get 0% interest loans, which fund these businesses so they're able to compete. These are one of the things that we'll be able to share when we launch our manifesto in a week's time. But we're quite clear that we're going to deepen and broaden transformation.
Now, you speak to a wider, broad-based economic empowerment that largely targets entrepreneurs of sorts. Entrepreneurs, Bongani, are a very small percentage. In any economy, your entrepreneurs are less than 5% of the population. So what happens to the other 95% population of black individuals in South Africa that want to be able to put food on their tables? How does your vision cater to them?
So when we speak transformation, we are also very clear and intentional that we are speaking about those who we believe must also participate gainfully in the economy by owning means of production. By owning means of production, we must also extend it to those who want to be absorbed into the labor market. And the government expenditure is going to actually cater for both, because what we're going to do as Xiluva when we get into government is expand infrastructure development and maintenance. The one thing holding back this country is infrastructure, be it water infrastructure, electricity infrastructure, logistics infrastructure, and economic infrastructure that is holding this country back. So whoever has to come into this country on the 1st of June must have a clear and decisive plan about infrastructure of the country. And we are going to prioritize infrastructure development in the first 5 years of this country, because we need to repair and stabilize things. In the procurement of and repairing of all of these, opportunities arise. You know, just to be able to get your goods and your goods out of the country and some goods into the country is a simple transaction. But not too long ago, PRASA was struggling with almost 100 ships not being able to dock in Richards Bay. That had caused a significant impact. So repairing those things already unlocks opportunities. By expanding this and also, growing your infrastructure development, you are looking many more other opportunities. So for us, the biggest key thing that we're going to be doing as a new government is infrastructure, maintenance, new built infrastructure. So engineers are going to actually unlock the prospect of this country with what we need to do.
Well, the country is not pumping, to use those words. The economy isn't pumping at the moment. The economy, in fact, is struggling in many areas. So how do you jumpstart the economy to get the funding for infrastructural development? Because infrastructural development does not give thousands, hundreds of thousands of people jobs.
We argue differently. If you get the country working, turning the country into a construction site, we're actually going to see the outcome of those jobs. When I was the mayor of Midvaal, I appreciated that infrastructure projects actually catered for opportunities for people with no skill as well and low skill as well, which are the biggest pool that are sitting in the unemployed market. So for us, it's quite important that when we look at the infrastructure, we must deal with how we increase the output of the infrastructure. What are the things that inhibit the country producing a greater output in GDP? It's electricity, it is water, it's economic infrastructure. So when you resolve those things immediately and directly, country, you are unlocking because you are stabilizing, people are able to trade. And with that comes an increase into your fiscus, and with that increase, you're able to expand. So we are quite clear that we're going to focus a lot and prioritize into our term a lot into infrastructure. So it means there's a few hard choices that we're going to have to make about whether we're spending there or are we spending there. So it means we'll have to think carefully about this 350 that people are talking about, and whether do you take that amount and throw into infrastructure and create a path for young people through conscription into the South African military to find a path and assist young people. You know, when we're in Johannesburg today in the CBD, there are a number of South African young people who are into drugs and alcohol and who want an escape out of this, but they don't know how. I mean, this is the future of this country. So when we look at the economy, we link the performance of the economy directly to one, a state of the infrastructure that allows the economy to transact. Number two, which I did not speak about, is the quality of leadership in this country, which can give a clear, decisive message about where government is going and where we're going to invest, which has not been the case in this case. But equally, strong law enforcement to guarantee people that South Africa is a country of laws and nothing will be allowed to happen, and cartels must be targeted to dismantle the strength of cartels into our economy.
One of the things that's most worrisome, which many political parties have not spoken to, is the issues around gender-based violence.
Yeah.
You know, every quarter, when the police minister announces those crime stats, I mean, we're talking about 12,000, 13,000, largely women, reported cases of abuse in a 3-month period. And bearing in mind that this is only a fraction of those that actually are abused, because it's a small percentage that... That make those reports. How are you going to deal with issues of violence that's related to gender-based, that is gender-based, and crime as a whole?
Yeah. Look, let's start with the issue of crime in gender-based violence. We firmly believe that to understand gender-based violence and to combat gender-based violence, let's understand the status of the black household. And as I've previously mentioned, that you can't divorce gender-based violence to the state of families in black household. They've been decimated. There's no longer a family nucleus where a child grows up in the family nucleus as a positive role model, as a father or as an uncle. Children grow up in seeing thugs and criminals in society, and they want to behave like they behave. And men have reneged on their responsibility in our society. So one of the things we're going to be intentional about is daughter as Xiluva. And that's why going back to who we are is important. That's why these initiations are important, because it teaches boy children how to conduct themselves as men growing up, but most importantly, how they relate to women and what they should do and what they should not do. But equally, the fact that our people are not economic participants and in a way that allows them to grow families also is a contributor towards this issue of gender-based violence. So equally, the issue of poverty. Poverty will link to crime. Crime is an outcome of poverty. So if you don't deal with poverty, then you won't actually deal with that. You can increase your police service, but if you don't deal with the issues that present a socio-economic situation where someone says, how am I going to eat? Do I go and find work, or do I go and steal? These are the practical things that informs someone getting involved into crime, and poverty is the enemy. So we must fight poverty. We must create an escape for young people to be absorbed in government. Number two, for those young people who are employed and who are employable and have a qualification, and that qualification means a skill outside of the country, the government must lead an initiative to actually pair those skills out of the country with young people here and facilitate them pursuing those opportunities. But those who are able to remain in the country through the value chain of what we'll be doing and growth of the economy, ultimately, they can find placement there. But most importantly, we are saying crime is an outcome of poverty.
Okay, and I suppose the final issue for me is around capacity building.
Yeah.
When we've talked about infrastructure, let's talk about service delivery in the various municipalities. One of the biggest challenges is that many of those individuals do not have capacity to deal with budgets. I mean, billions of rand are being sent back and aren't being spent. Yeah. How do you envision, Xiluva, dealing with that side of things in terms of capacity building?
Well, when we speak of how we structure government, which deals with the capacity component, we're saying we need to reduce cabinet to half, remove the provincial sphere of government. It's a useless sphere, and we need to get the budget closer to where the people are. And then you move from having 239 municipalities, more or less, to under 60 municipalities. So as opposed to having 239 institutions that are independent but interdependent on each other and rely on councillors there, some who have no skill to preside over those, not going to help. So we must consolidate. And most importantly, what we need to introduce as a government is a prerequisite for you to be a public representative. Now we just say no criminal record, and you must be electable, and people must elect you, and that's fine. And I really think that's actually the worst thing we can do. We as Xiluva fundamentally believe in meritocracy. So we must actually select the best of the best and deploy them. And that's a key principle of Ubuntu, by the way, selecting your best of the best and giving them the responsibility to go and serve on behalf of the people. So we are quite clear that capacity speaks to meritocracy and systems of government and also political parties. You will never, in the current confines, get to achieve meritocracy, because all you do is you, in the current political parties, there's an elective Congress. They go and get money from private sector who they have their interest in, and they buy members of the parties who might go and vote for them, and then they go and return their favors when they get into government by deploying people who will advance their cause. So if South Africans don't vote for people who are saying, on our side, we will insulate ourselves from external influence and money, and elect and appoint the best of the best that are competent and those who are committed to a path of success and equally a path of delivery. On our side, as Xiluva, the currency that matters as a leader is what have you done for your people that is positive.
Okay, that's where we'll leave that discussion. Bongani Baloyi, Xiluva leader, appreciate your time and congratulations on 12 months.
Thank you so much. It's been a fulfilling journey, and we're looking forward to the next decade where Xiluva is going to influence the course of this country.